The rain hammered against the windows of the cramped law office in downtown Detroit, creating rivulets that distorted the view of the decaying urban landscape below. Gabriel Martinez sat hunched over a stack of case files, his bloodshot eyes scanning the same paragraph for the third time without comprehending a single word. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the photographs spread across his desk. Images of his sister Elena, frozen in time, her smile forever preserved in a moment before everything went wrong. 6 months had passed since Elena's murder, and the case had already grown cold in the eyes of the Detroit Police Department. A young Colombian immigrant teacher found dead in an abandoned warehouse on the east side, her death quickly dismissed as another casualty of urban violence. But Gabriel knew better. Elena had been investigating grade-fixing scandals at her school, scandals that implicated several prominent city officials' children. She had come to him with her concerns just 2 weeks before her death, and he had told her to be careful, to gather more evidence before going public. Now he carried the weight of those words like stones in his chest. "You need to go home, Gabe." Marcus Washington, his law partner, stood in the doorway, concern etched across his weathered face. Marcus had built this practice from nothing, taking cases nobody else would touch, defending those the system had already condemned. "You've been here for 36 hours straight. This isn't healthy." Gabriel looked up, his vision blurring momentarily. "They're closing her case, Marcus. Insufficient evidence, they say. How is a body with defensive wounds and clear signs of struggle insufficient evidence?" His voice cracked with exhaustion and rage. Marcus entered the office, carefully moving aside the empty coffee cups and takeout containers that littered every surface. "I know it hurts, brother, but you can't bring her back by destroying yourself. Elena wouldn't want this." "Elena wanted justice," Gabriel shot back, his Colombian accent thickening with emotion. "She believed in this country, in its systems. She came here when she was 15, worked 3 jobs to put herself through college, became a teacher because she wanted to give back. And what did this country give her in return? A shallow grave and a case number that nobody will remember." The older lawyer sat down across from Gabriel, his eyes reflecting years of similar disappointments. "The system is broken, Gabe. We both know that. But we fight it from within, case by case. That's what we do." Gabriel pulled out a manila envelope from beneath the pile of documents. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. "What if I told you I found something? Something that proves Elena's death wasn't random? That it goes all the way up to the mayor's office?" Marcus leaned forward, his expression shifting from concern to caution. "What kind of something?" "Elena had a safety deposit box I didn't know about. She gave me a key 2 weeks before she died, told me it was for emergencies only. I finally opened it yesterday." Gabriel spread out a series of documents on the desk, emails, financial records, photographs of meetings. She documented everything. The grade fixing was just the tip of the iceberg. There's embezzlement, bribery, connections to human trafficking operations using school facilities as fronts. Marcus studied the documents, his face growing increasingly grave. "Jesus Christ, Gabe. This is explosive, but it's also dangerous. If they killed Elena for knowing this, then they'll come for anyone else who has it," Gabriel finished. "But what's the alternative? Let them get away with it? Let Elena's death mean nothing?" Before Marcus could respond, Gabriel's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Gabriel Martinez." "Mr. Martinez, my name is Sophia Chen. I'm an investigative journalist with the Detroit Free Press. I believe we need to talk about your sister's case." The voice was professional, but carried an undertone of urgency. Gabriel's grip tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number?" "Elena gave it to me. We were working together before she died. I've been investigating the same network she was. I have information you need to see, and I believe you have documents that could help expose the truth. Can we meet?" Gabriel looked at Marcus, who was shaking his head vigorously. But Gabriel was already past the point of caution. Tomorrow morning, Hart Plaza by the Renaissance Center, 9 a.m., come alone. After ending the call, Marcus stood up, pacing the small office. This is a bad idea, Gabe. You don't know this woman. This could be a setup. Or it could be the break we need, Gabriel countered. Elena trusted her enough to give her my number. That has to count for something. That night, Gabriel finally left the office, driving through the rain-slicked streets of Detroit. The city looked different now. Every shadow potentially hiding someone who wanted him silent. Every passing car possibly following him. He stopped at a red light in Corktown, watching a homeless veteran huddle under an overpass, and wondered how many other victims the city had swallowed without justice. His apartment in Midtown felt foreign when he entered. Elena's things were still in boxes by the door. He hadn't been able to bring himself to go through them properly. Among them was a photo from last Christmas, the last one they'd spent together. She was wearing the ugly sweater he'd bought her as a joke, laughing at something off-camera. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Gabriel poured himself a whiskey, his first in months, and stood by the window watching the city lights blur through the rain. Tomorrow he would meet Sophia Chen. Tomorrow he would decide whether to trust a stranger with evidence that could either bring justice for Elena or get him killed. The whiskey burned his throat, but not as much as the knowledge that his sister's killers were out there, probably sleeping peacefully in their expensive homes, confident that their secret was buried with her. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or join your sister." Gabriel stared at the message, fear and anger warring in his chest. He screenshotted it, adding it to his growing file of evidence. They were scared. Good. They should be. As he prepared for bed, Gabriel checked his gun safe, something he'd bought but never thought he'd need. The Glock 19 sat there, cleaned and loaded. He'd gotten his concealed carry permit years ago at Marcus's insistence, but had never carried. Tomorrow, he decided, that would change. The rain continued through the night, and Gabriel lay awake listening to it, thinking about Elena, about justice, about the price of truth in a city built on lies. Somewhere in Detroit, powerful people were making phone calls, moving pieces on a chessboard he was only beginning to see. But Gabriel had something they didn't expect, desperation mixed with nothing left to lose. In his experience as a lawyer, that combination made people either very dangerous or very dead. Tomorrow, he would find out which one he would become. The morning arrived grey and bitter cold, unusual even for Detroit in early March. Gabriel stood at Hart Plaza 20 minutes early, his hand unconsciously checking the weight of the concealed Glock under his jacket. The Detroit River moved sluggishly behind him, carrying chunks of ice toward Lake St. Clair. He chose this spot deliberately. Public enough to discourage violence, open enough to see anyone approaching from multiple directions. Sophia Chen arrived exactly on time, walking with the purposeful stride of someone who had spent years navigating dangerous situations. She was younger than her voice had suggested, perhaps early 30s, Asian American with sharp eyes that seemed to catalogue every detail of her surroundings. She wore a plain black coat and carried a messenger bag that she kept close to her body. "Mr. Martinez," she said, extending her hand, "thank you for meeting me. I'm sorry about Elena. She was brave, perhaps too brave for her own good." Gabriel studied her face, looking for deception. "You worked with her. For how long?" 3 months. She reached out to me after reading my series on corruption in the Detroit public schools. She had noticed patterns I had missed, connections that went deeper than I'd imagined. Sophia glanced around, then suggested, "There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, more private than standing in the open." They walked in silence through the awakening city, past the Guardian Building's Art Deco majesty, a reminder of Detroit's former glory. The coffee shop was nearly empty, just a few early morning regulars nursing their drinks. They took a corner booth, backs to the wall, both unconsciously choosing seats that gave them a view of the entrance. Sophia pulled out a tablet, her fingers flying across the screen with encrypted passwords. "Your sister was brilliant, Mr. Martinez. She understood that the grade-fixing scandal was just a gateway to something much larger. Look at this. She showed him a complex web of connections, names and organizations linked by colored lines. The mayor's chief of staff, 3 city council members, 2 judges, and at least a dozen school administrators. They're all connected through a company called Educational Solutions, Inc., supposedly a consulting firm. Gabriel recognized several names from Elena's documents. She mentioned this company, said they were using school buildings after hours for something. Human trafficking, Sophia said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. They bring in undocumented immigrants, promise them work and education, then trap them in debt bondage. The schools provide perfect cover, buses that can move people without suspicion, buildings that are empty at night, a built-in explanation for young people coming and going. The coffee in Gabriel's cup had gone cold, but he didn't notice. You have proof of this? Sophia hesitated, then pulled out a flash drive. Video testimonies from 3 survivors, financial records showing payments, and... She paused. Recordings of planning meetings. Elena helped me get some of these. She was supposed to testify to a federal grand jury next month. Federal? Gabriel's mind raced. The FBI knows about this? One agent does, Special Agent Denise Parker. She's been building a RICO case for 2 years, but she needs more evidence to move forward. Elena's death set everything back. Parker thinks there's a leak in her office, someone warning the targets when raids are planned. Gabriel pulled out his own envelope of documents. Then we bypass the system, take it public, force their hand. Sophia shook her head. That's what Elena wanted to do. Look how that ended. We need to be smarter. I've been investigating the judge who'll be presiding over any potential case. Judge Harold Morrison. He's clean, but his daughter attends one of the schools involved. They have leverage on everyone. So what do you propose? Gabriel asked, frustration edging into his voice. We need irrefutable evidence of a crime in progress, something so damning that even corrupted officials can't bury it. I have a source who says there's going to be a major operation next week. They're moving a large group of victims through the city. If we can document it, catch them in the act. Gabriel's phone buzzed. Marcus was calling. He answered, Marcus, I'm in a meeting. Gabe, get out of wherever you are right now. Marcus's voice was urgent, panicked. The office was ransacked last night after you left. They took everything, all the files, the computers, everything, and there's more. There's a warrant out for your arrest. What? On what charges? Embezzlement. They're saying you stole client funds. It's bullshit, but they have fabricated documents, Gabe. This is a frame job. You need to... The line went dead. Gabriel looked at his phone. No signal. Sophia was having the same problem. They both looked up as 2 Detroit police cars pulled up outside the coffee shop. Back exit, Sophia said quickly, already moving. They slipped through the kitchen, ignoring the startled cook, and emerged into an alley. Sophia's car, an anonymous Honda Civic, was parked strategically near the alley mouth. They got in just as officers entered the coffee shop behind them. Sophia drove carefully, obeying every traffic law, while Gabriel's mind reeled. They're trying to discredit me, make anything I say look like the desperate lies of a criminal, which means we're close to something they're terrified of, Sophia replied, turning into a parking garage. I have a safe house, an apartment I rent under an assumed name for situations like this. We can regroup there. The apartment was in Hamtramck, above a Polish bakery, small but well-positioned with multiple exit routes. Sophia had clearly prepared for this possibility. There were supplies, multiple laptops, and boxes of documents. You've been planning for this, Gabriel observed. I've been investigating corruption for 8 years, Mr. Martinez. I've learned to be prepared for when they come after me. She pulled up a map on one of the laptops. The operation I mentioned, my source says it's happening at the old Packard plant. They're using the abandoned sections to house victims before moving them out of state. Gabriel studied the map. The Packard plant was a massive abandoned automotive factory, a sprawling ruin that had become a symbol of Detroit's decay. That place is huge. How do we find them? I have someone on the inside, a security guard who's been feeding me information. He's scared, wants out, but needs guarantee of protection. Sophia pulled up a photograph of a young black man in a security uniform. Jerome Williams, 24, has a daughter with special needs. He took the job not knowing what it really involved. Gabriel's lawyer instincts kicked in. We can get him federal witness protection if his information leads to convictions, but we need Agent Parker on board. Already arranged, Sophia said. She's willing to meet, but only if we can guarantee new evidence. She's risking her career by continuing to pursue this after being told to stand down. That evening, as the sun set over Detroit's skyline, they met Agent Parker in an abandoned warehouse in Corktown, a location chosen for its isolation and multiple escape routes. Denise Parker was a tall African-American woman in her 40s, with the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. Mr. Martinez, Ms. Chen, she greeted them formally. I'm sorry about your sister. She was a valuable asset and a good person. She was my family, Gabriel corrected sharply. Parker nodded. Of course, my apologies. Let me be direct. I have 72 hours before I'm transferred to the Seattle office. Someone very powerful wants me away from this case. Whatever we're going to do, it needs to happen now. Sophia laid out their plan, the intelligence about the Packard plant operation. Parker listened intently, occasionally asking pointed questions. It's risky, Parker finally said. If we move without backup and something goes wrong, we're all finished. But if we call for backup, someone will tip them off. She made a decision. I have 2 agents I trust absolutely. Military veterans, clean records. With the 5 of us and your inside man, we might be able to document enough to force the Justice Department's hand. Gabriel felt the weight of the Glock against his ribs. What about the warrant against me? Suspended pending federal investigation as of an hour ago, Parker said with a slight smile. I still have some friends in high places, but that won't last long. We move tomorrow night. Mom, the Packard automotive plant stretched across 40 acres of Detroit's east side like the skeleton of a prehistoric beast, its broken windows and crumbling concrete a testament to the city's industrial death. Gabriel crouched in the shadows of a collapsed loading dock, his breath visible in the frigid night air. Beside him, Sophia adjusted her camera's night vision settings while Agent Parker coordinated positions through encrypted radio channels. Team 2 in position, crackled the voice of Agent Rivera, one of Parker's trusted colleagues. Northwest entrance covered. Team 3 set, added Agent Thompson. Multiple heat signatures in Building 3, second floor. Jerome Williams, their inside source, had provided detailed intelligence. Tonight, 43 victims were being held in the plant before their planned transport to Chicago. The operation was run with military precision, guards at strategic points, vehicles ready for rapid evacuation, and a complex system of lookouts that made undetected approach nearly impossible. Gabriel watched through binoculars as 2 vans pulled up to a side entrance. Men emerged, speaking in low voices that carried in the still night air. He recognized one immediately. City Councilman David Murray, a man who had publicly championed immigrant rights while apparently profiting from their exploitation. That's Murray, Gabriel whispered to Sophia, who was already recording. 3rd from the left. Got him, she confirmed, her camera capturing every detail in high definition. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m. The next hour moved with agonizing slowness. Guards rotated positions, vehicles came and went, but the main event hadn't begun. Then at 12:30 a.m., a convoy of 3 buses arrived, the kind used for prison transfers, windows blacked out. Gabriel felt his stomach tighten as he watched armed men herd people from the building, men, women, teenagers, some looking barely older than children. Jesus Christ! Parker's voice came through the earpiece. They're loading them like cattle. Gabriel started to move forward, but Sophia grabbed his arm. Not yet. We need the whole operation on camera. That's when everything went wrong. A spotlight suddenly blazed to life, sweeping across their position. They'd been made. Shouts erupted from the building, and Gabriel heard the unmistakable sound of weapons being drawn. "Federal agents, nobody move!" Parker's voice boomed through a megaphone, her planned subtle documentation abandoned for a direct intervention. Chaos erupted. The guards opened fire, using the victims as human shields. Gabriel saw a young woman, no older than Elena had been, stumble and fall. Without thinking, he broke cover, running toward her as bullets sparked off the concrete around him. He reached her just as a guard turned his weapon toward them. Gabriel drew his Glock, the weight familiar now after hours of practice at the range following Elena's death. The shots were instant, training taking over two to center mass. The guard fell, his weapon clattering away. "Get down!" Gabriel covered the woman with his body as the firefight intensified around them. Parker's agents were outnumbered, but better trained, using cover effectively while trying to avoid hitting civilians. Sophia had abandoned her camera for her phone, live-streaming everything to multiple platforms simultaneously. "Detroit police corruption exposed," she narrated while filming. "Human trafficking operation at Packard plant interrupted by federal agents." Within minutes, sirens filled the air, but these weren't friendly reinforcements. Gabriel recognized several of the arriving officers. They were on Murray's payroll. The corrupt cops immediately began securing the scene, which meant destroying evidence and releasing the traffickers while arresting the victims as illegal immigrants. "This is Detective Roy Stevens," a voice bellowed. "Federal agents, stand down. This is our jurisdiction." Parker emerged from cover, her badge held high. "This is a federal human trafficking investigation, Detective. Your jurisdiction ends where federal crimes begin." Stevens, a thick-set man with dead eyes, smiled coldly. "I don't see any federal crime here. Just a bunch of illegals trespassing in an abandoned building and some concerned citizens trying to help them." Gabriel stood up, still shielding the young woman. "Concerned citizens with automatic weapons? You're really going with that story?" Stevens turned to him, recognition dawning. "Gabriel Martinez. You're under arrest for embezzlement, assault with a deadly weapon, and now interfering with police business. The only business here is human trafficking, and you know it," Gabriel shot back. More police arrived, these from a different precinct. The situation was becoming a jurisdictional nightmare. Parker was on her phone, calling for federal backup, but Gabriel could see it would be too late. Evidence was already being destroyed, witnesses dispersed. Then Sophia did something unexpected. She walked directly to Detective Stevens, her phone still recording. "Detective Stevens, can you explain why you were photographed at a meeting with Councilman Murray and known human trafficker Mikhail Volkov last Tuesday at the Greektown Casino?" Stevens's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about this." Sophia pulled up a photograph on her phone, showing it to the gathering crowd of officers and victims. "And this recording of you discussing payment for protecting tonight's operation." The tide began to turn. Younger officers, those not yet corrupted, began to question orders. The victims, seeing a chance, started speaking out, some in broken English, others through translators, telling their stories to anyone who would listen. An elderly Mexican woman grabbed Gabriel's arm. "You saved Maria," she said, indicating the young woman he'd protected. "She is my granddaughter. They took us from Texas, promised work, but then..." Tears streamed down her weathered face. Federal backup finally arrived. FBI, DEA, and ICE agents, who weren't part of the local corruption network. Parker took charge, directing the proper collection of evidence, while corrupt officers were detained for questioning. Murray tried to slip away in the chaos, but Gabriel spotted him. The councilman was heading for a car when Gabriel intercepted him. "Going somewhere, Councilman?" Murray turned, his political smile completely absent. "You have no idea what you've done, Martinez. This goes so much higher than you know. They'll destroy you for this." "They already tried," Gabriel replied. "They killed my sister. After that, what else can they do to me?" "Your sister was naive, just like you," Murray snarled. "She thought she could change things, make a difference. Look where it got her." Gabriel felt rage surge through him, but maintained control. It got her here tonight, stopping you. Every victim we save tonight is because of what Elena started. Federal agents took Murray into custody, but his words echoed in Gabriel's mind. This did go higher. Tonight was just one operation, one node in a vast network. As dawn broke over Detroit, the Packard plant was a crime scene spanning multiple buildings. 43 victims had been rescued, 15 traffickers arrested, and 3 city officials were in federal custody. But Gabriel knew this was far from over. Sophia found him sitting on a concrete barrier, exhaustion finally catching up. "We did it," she said, sitting beside him. "The live stream went viral, 3 million views and climbing. Every major news outlet is picking it up." "It's not enough," Gabriel said quietly. "Murray was right about one thing. This goes higher. We cut off one head, but the Hydra has many more." Parker approached them, looking haggard but determined. "You both need to come to the federal building. We need your statements, and frankly, you need protection. There's already chatter about retaliation." As they prepared to leave, Gabriel noticed Maria, the young woman he'd saved, being treated by paramedics. She caught his eye and nodded, a simple gesture that somehow meant everything. He thought of Elena, of her belief that one person could make a difference. 2 weeks after the Packard plant raid, Gabriel sat in a federal courthouse in downtown Detroit, watching as the first of many trials began. The courtroom was packed with media, activists, and citizens who had followed the story that had shocked the nation. Murray and 5 other officials were being tried first, their cases expedited due to the overwhelming evidence and public pressure. Sophia sat in the press section, her fingers flying across her laptop as she live-blogged the proceedings. She had become something of a celebrity journalist, with offers from major newspapers and networks, but she remained committed to seeing this story through with the Detroit Free Press. "The prosecution calls Gabriel Martinez to the stand," announced Assistant U.S. Attorney Michelle Rodriguez, a fierce litigator brought in specially from Washington to avoid any local conflicts of interest. Gabriel walked to the witness stand, his hand steady as he took the oath. For 3 hours, he testified about Elena's investigation, her death, and the evidence she had compiled. He spoke clearly, emotionlessly, letting the facts tell the story. When Murray's defense attorney tried to paint him as a vengeful brother, fabricating evidence, Gabriel simply produced document after document, each meticulously authenticated by federal forensics experts. "Mr. Martinez," the defense attorney pressed, "isn't it true that you shot and killed a man during the raid?" "I shot an armed human trafficker who was about to execute an innocent woman," Gabriel corrected. "And yes, he died. I'd do it again." "So you admit to taking the law into your own hands?" Rodriguez objected before Gabriel could answer. "Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Martinez acted in clear self-defense and defense of others, as already determined by the federal investigation." "Sustained," Judge Morrison ruled. He was the same judge Sophia had researched, and true to her findings, he had proven incorruptible despite the attempts to leverage his daughter against him. As the trial progressed over the following days, the full scope of the conspiracy began to emerge. The trafficking network extended across 6 states with connections to similar operations in Canada and Mexico. Educational Solutions, Inc. was revealed to be a shell company with ties to Eastern European crime syndicates. The grade-fixing scandal that Elena had initially investigated was just a small part of a system that used schools as covers for various criminal enterprises. Agent Parker testified about the federal investigation, revealing that Elena had been a registered confidential informant whose death had nearly derailed a 2-year operation. "Elena Martinez was one of the bravest civilians I've ever worked with," Parker stated. "Her death was not just a murder, but an attack on the justice system itself." On the 4th day of testimony, something unexpected happened. Jerome Williams, the security guard who had been their inside source, revealed he had been recording conversations for months before connecting with Sophia. His recordings included Murray explicitly discussing Elena's murder, ordering it when she refused bribes to stay quiet. Gabriel felt the courtroom spin as he heard his sister's name on the recording, heard Murray saying, "Make it look random. Another dead immigrant in a bad neighborhood, nobody will care." But people did care. The courtroom erupted, and Judge Morrison had to clear the gallery. When order was restored, Gabriel found himself crying for the first time since Elena's funeral, the tears of rage finally giving way to tears of grief. That evening, Gabriel and Sophia met at a small restaurant in Mexican Town, away from the media circus downtown. They had become close over the weeks, united by trauma and purpose. "How are you holding up?" Sophia asked, noting the exhaustion written across his face. "I keep thinking about what Elena would say," Gabriel replied. "She always believed in justice, in the system, even when it failed her. I wonder if she'd be proud or horrified by what we've done." "Both, probably," Sophia said with a sad smile. "But she'd understand. Sometimes the system needs to be shocked into working." Gabriel's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. His partner had been working to rebuild their practice, fighting to clear Gabriel's name from the false embezzlement charges. "Good news," the text read. "State Bar dropping all charges. Full reinstatement next week." It should have felt like a victory, but Gabriel felt hollow. "I don't know if I can go back to practicing law," he admitted to Sophia. "Not the same way. How do you defend a system you know is this broken?" "You don't defend it," Sophia replied. "You fix it. One case, one story, one truth at a time." The next morning brought a surprise. The mayor, facing immense pressure, announced his resignation and called for a federal oversight committee to investigate corruption in city government. It was an unprecedented move that sent shockwaves through Detroit's political establishment. Gabriel was called to another meeting, this time with the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. "Mr. Martinez, we want to offer you a position. Special prosecutor for public corruption cases. Your experience, your reputation now, you could make real change." It was an opportunity Gabriel had never imagined, but he asked for time to consider. That afternoon, he visited Elena's grave for the first time since the raid. The cemetery was quiet, spring finally bringing color back to Michigan after the brutal winter. "We got them, Elena," he said quietly, placing fresh flowers, Colombian roses he'd special ordered, on her headstone. "Not all of them, but enough. Murray will likely get life. The others, decades. Some of the victims are getting asylum, real help." Wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment Gabriel could almost hear his sister's voice, telling him the work wasn't done, that justice was a marathon, not a sprint. His phone rang. It was Maria, the young woman he'd saved at the plant. She was calling from a shelter where she was receiving help to rebuild her life. "Mr. Martinez," she said in improving English, "I wanted to thank you. And to tell you, I'm going to become a lawyer, like you, to help others like you helped me." Gabriel smiled, the first genuine smile in months. "That's wonderful, Maria. If you need any help, recommendations for schools, anything, I know who to call," she finished. "You showed me that one person can stand up to evil. I won't forget." After the call, Gabriel made his decision. He called the U.S. Attorney and accepted the position. He would continue Elena's fight, but from inside the system now, with the power to make real change. The trials continued for months, 37 convictions in total, with sentences ranging from 5 years to life. The human trafficking network was dismantled, though everyone knew others would try to take its place. That was the nature of evil. It was persistent, adaptive, always looking for new ways to exploit the vulnerable. Sophia won a Pulitzer Prize for her investigative reporting. In her acceptance speech, she dedicated it to Elena Martinez and all the invisible victims whose stories go untold. She and Gabriel remained close, their shared trauma evolving into a deep friendship and eventually something more, though both were too damaged and cautious to rush into anything. On the 1-year anniversary of Elena's death, a memorial was unveiled at the school where she had taught. It was a simple plaque, But the ceremony was attended by hundreds, students she had taught, families she had helped, colleagues who remembered her courage. Gabriel spoke briefly, his words simple but powerful. Eleanor believed in justice not as an abstract concept, but as a daily choice. Every time we choose truth over convenience, courage over comfort, we honor her memory. As he stood there, surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by his sister's courage and his quest for justice, Gabriel understood something fundamental. Justice wasn't a destination, but a journey. It wasn't about winning every battle, but about never stopping the fight. The system was broken, yes, but it was broken because people had allowed it to break, and it could be fixed the same way, by people who refused to accept that broken was permanent. Detroit's skyline stretched before him as he left the ceremony, Sophia at his side. The city was still struggling, still fighting its demons, but there was hope now. Federal oversight was cleaning out corruption, new leaders were emerging, and slowly, painfully, trust was being rebuilt. "What now?" Sophia asked, as they walked toward their cars. "Now we continue," Gabriel replied. "There are more Elenas out there, more victims who need someone to stand for them. The proof we exposed was just the beginning." Sophia nodded, understanding. The story they had started was far from over. In a city built on industry and broken by greed, they had chosen to be part of the rebuilding, one truth at a time. As they drove away in separate cars towards separate battles, both knew they would continue to fight, continue to expose, continue to seek justice. Because in the end, that's what Elena would have done. And in a world where justice could fail, they had learned that sometimes, just sometimes, truth and determination could make it succeed again.